Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Simon Matthews with you from the Global Positive Health Institute, and I'm here, of course, with the founder and president, Dr. Liana Lianov. And in this series, if you've been listening already, you'll know that we're digging into Liana's recent book, Strengths in the Mirror. And in particular, we're starting to look at the tool sets that we can use to apply in our own lives and indeed to support those around us to start moving towards the experience that we're talking about of positive health. Today, we're going to look at the next toolkit in the series. It's the second set of tools. We're going to have a dive into that. That's called positive activities. So I'm going to ask Liana very shortly to share with us what these tools are, and then we'll start exploring and finding out how we can use them. Thanks, Liana. So why don't we kick off with a definition first? What are positive activities?
So thank you, Simon. And positive activities, I think, is absolutely the heart of what I emphasize in the book. It's the heart of positive psychology and ultimately the heart of our healthy lifestyles and the foundation, the grounding that gives us the energy to achieve our health goals. And specifically, there's a lot of different definitions depending on what we're specifically thinking about. Positive health is actually the overall state of being that is a state of flourishing that we achieve over and above what can be achieved by addressing traditional health factors. So that's a state of positive health. Now that's achieved in many ways, and that's what we're talking about with all these different toolkits. And today we're really emphasizing these positive activities, which is sort of a layman's way of talking about, in the literature, they call it, science literature, they call it positive psychology interventions. And those are intentional activities, habits, or sometimes a reframing of our worldview or our focus in ways that boost our positive emotions. Physiologically, they have an amazing impact. We often think of the emotional and mental health consequences, but I'm particularly interested in that physical health and physiology impact as well. So again, positive activities are just anything that we can do that makes us feel good and happy.
I wonder if you could share with us some examples of what these positive activities might be.
There are so many. And in fact, that's been some of the challenge behind the research, because some of this research is just throwing everything into that soup of positive activities and hard to tease out what's actually working. And research is clearly trying to tease all that out. And so examples that are commonly researched individually are, for example, gratitude. And practicing gratitude is a very common positive activity. Another positive activity is doing acts of kindness. Another one might just be simply reflecting on what's good. Think of 3 good things that have happened this week. Or it can be even positivity reminiscence, like positive experiences that we've had in the past that we're just bringing back to mind. So it's not actually an actual activity we're doing out in the physical world, but in our mind, we're refocusing. And so if we have a down moment, if we're feeling challenged, we need a little extra boost. If we can recall a wonderful vacation or a beautiful stroll in a nice wooded area, or a lovely experience with a family member or friend, and recall that in details, in a lot of detail, then our mind and body doesn't know the difference between it actually happening out in the real world or happening in our mind, and we can get that quick boost. And so I can go on, but there's lots of ways to do positive activities.
I was going to ask you something, Liana, about toxic positivity, which I'll come to shortly. But you've just you've sparked my interest there in with this comment on positive reminiscences, and I wonder if you could say something about the link between positive activities and other positive health practices. In particular, what I'm thinking is that in order to have a positive reminiscence, in order to look back on a time that was, for example, particularly pleasurable or engaging for us, we need to have been mindfully attentive to it at the time in order to have that recollection. If we simply, move through life not particularly mindfully engaging in what goes on day to day, I'm not sure that we ever get those positive reminiscences.
That's an excellent comment, and that actually is what we call I call it a reframing, and making a point of, as part of our quote positive activities, paying attention to what activities actually do give us that boost, and really looking for them throughout the day. And they can be little things or big things. And the more we're aware of them in the moment, the more we're going to remember the details of that experience. And at a later time, we can recall them and get that same boost.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we can start to see now the link between having that regular practice of bringing our full attention to what we're experiencing in order then to be able to subsequently have access to those memories. I wonder if you could also say something here, Liana, about an idea I think that's probably had some more attention recently, the idea of happyology or toxic positivity, and how we keep the science of positive psychology being authentic, as opposed to falling into that realm of happyology.
Absolutely. There's clearly been a wave, a group of individuals who may be pushing back and saying, what's this positive psychology, that don't fully understand the science behind it, and may have their own interpretation. An interpretation might be something like, boy, I'm going to force myself to be positive no matter what. And of course, that doesn't work, because what happens? We start to become resentful and actually become negative. We have negative emotions. So positive toxicity is a negative emotion, and we want to avoid that. So the science of positive psychology is really directing us to embrace all of our emotions, and then to start to be self-compassionate when we do have those negative emotions. Say we're all human, we have ups and downs, that's okay. And with that self-compassion and self-acceptance, and sometimes with some social support, we can start to reframe and focus on what is good in our lives. But it's not always an automatic, and it's certainly not constant. And it really is about fleeting moments of positivity, as opposed to constant forced positivity.
So we shouldn't necessarily be striving to be thankful for every single element of our lives all the time, even in the midst of significant adversity. It's okay to be real about the adversity.
Exactly. Be real. You said it. You've got to be real. All of this, all these emotions that are going to benefit us emotionally, mentally, physically, have to be authentic and not forced. And so to be authentic, we got to be real, and as the word says, and see the whole picture, and then gently try to nudge ourselves in a way that's more productive and more useful and healthy.
I'm going to ask you, Liana, to share one of your favorites, or maybe a couple of your favorite positive activities from the toolkit. I'll in turn share one of mine after that, if I may.
Yeah, well, for me, I think a positive activity can be as simple as just, because I do spend quite a bit of time in front of the computer and working, and besides getting out and of course enjoying nature and taking a walk, is just to look up from whatever's going on and whatever I'm working on, and just get grounded in the here and now. It's a kind of mindfulness. just an appreciation just of being, which is different than even, looking out there in terms of what's good in my life or what's, what am I grateful for? Those are all great too, but it's even simpler than that and so much easier and quicker. And I can get a little high by just saying, whoa, okay, wow, that was intense. Now let me look up from that. Wow, appreciate that. Maybe I've been working hard, but I'm here. I have a self-compassion for who I am and what I am and this moment, and glad to be alive.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. But one of my favorites, Liana, is actually acts of kindness. Which we can of course do with people that we know, people that we love, people we're in relationship with, and we can also do it with strangers. And in fact, as you and I are recording this, the Random Acts of Kindness National Day in the United States was just last week, the 17th of February. And so I wonder whether anyone listening recalls engaging in a random act of kindness in the last week. But I love acts of kindness because they also build relationship. And so that's one of my go-to positive activities. And there are some in particular that I know I'm always on the lookout for. For example, you can't tell right now, but I'm actually 6'4". I'm very tall. And when I go into the grocery store, I keep an eye out for people who are looking up on the shelves and maybe can't reach an item that they're looking for. And I'll simply walk up to them and offer to reach it for them. Costs me absolutely nothing. Doesn't cost me anything, doesn't cost me time, money, but it does contribute something to someone else that makes a difference. When I stand at the cashier at the grocery store, the fruit store, if I'm getting a coffee, there's two things that I always make a habit of doing. The first one is inquiring about how the person's day is going, and sometimes I'll even go the extra mile and ask them what's the best part of their day so far. And the other thing that I do is always say thank you to everyone who does anything, whether it's the cashier, whether it's someone who assists me with directions in finding something. But taking that moment just to express kindness verbally to one another is one of my favorite positive activities.
Well, it's terrific, because really what you're speaking to here is how the elements of positive psychology can interlink. So you're talking about an act of kindness, which in and of itself has some physiologic benefits, but it's actually then increased because you're going out of your way for that genuine thank you or genuine interaction around that act of kindness. And so that's a micro moment of connectivity, which we're going to talk about in the next set of tool sets. So you're kind of taking advantage of two at the same time. And in fact, we should all be looking for ways to compound the positive emotions and positive effects. But also, as you're speaking, I'm wondering if there are people in the audience that say, well, what if acts of kindness are a great thing, and I know it's good to do, but there's a lot of times I'm just not up for it. And they might look at you, Simon, and say, maybe you're just that kind of guy, Mr. Acts of Kindness, but it's not for me. And what I have on tip of my memory, because I just recently re-reviewed a lecture that Dr. David Freiberg gave at our conference at the Global Positive Health Institute conference in fall of 21, is that exposing ourselves to images of kindness can get us in that mood for acts of kindness. And so it's a very passive activity. And if you're having even a low moment, a low day, and you're on Facebook, which of course we don't generally recommend, we'll also talk about that next time with social activities, but you find yourself gravitating to images of puppies and cats, and maybe you're feeling guilty about it. Don't, it's a good thing. You're exposing yourself to images of kindness, especially people petting a dog, etc. And through that, it will get you in the mood to actually do acts of kindness at some point and get those benefits physiologically, mentally, but just shielding ourselves from unkind images and towards more kind images is an important thing to be thinking about for our well-being.
You've just reminded me, Liana, there's for people who are familiar with Reddit, we've been talking about online connectivity. People who are familiar with Reddit, there's a thread on Reddit called "Made Me Smile," which is chock full of exactly those things, images that often have kindness as a central theme, and things that literally do evoke a smile.
I love those videos where people are rescuing animals, right? It's lovely act of kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Something for the benefit of another living creature that really doesn't cost us anything. Yeah, as you were speaking, Liana, about people who might be struggling with a sense of light. I don't feel like I'm particularly in that space at the moment. What struck me, of course, was that it is also a reminder to those of us who do feel the capacity to make that a regular practice, because you never know when that might make a difference in someone else's life. We don't know the struggles that people around us might be going through, and that simple act of saying hello to someone, or saying thank you, or inquiring about someone's well-being, or carrying something for someone, reaching something for someone, might be that one thing that makes a significant difference to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably have a number of listeners and followers who are health professionals, healthcare workers that are dealing with a lot of stress in the healthcare work environment. And there are ways to be bringing what we're talking about into our workplace in terms of whether it's kindness images or a few of those authentic exchanges that can really make a difference in someone else's day. And I know that it's a huge topic in terms of burnout and so much more that can be talked about in that realm. And so I don't want to oversimplify it, but yet it is important to remember that even some of the smallest things that we're talking about now can make a bit of a difference. And we shouldn't offhand say, oh, that's just too simplistic, and I need some big solutions to my emotional ill health, for example. It sometimes starts very small.
Yeah. Liana, as we wrap up this one today, I wonder if you could share from your perspective. Let's imagine someone who's not currently engaging in practices like this, perhaps not even that familiar with them. What would be a great starting place, that very first step on the ladder for someone to begin engaging more with positive activities?
Well, a resource that I always highly recommend is the website by the Greater Good Science Center, and they have a sister website called Greater Good in Action. And there one can research a number of positive psychology-based activities and learn about them, learn the science behind them. They're well-written articles, and on the Greater Good in Action, it actually gives you step-by-step how to do an activity. So I would say if someone was just curious about what to do and how to do it, it's a place to start and look at the list of options. And it might be, again, practicing self-compassion, forgiveness. The topics are wide and varied. And then go to that Greater Good in Action website and follow those instructions. They're usually half a page, and it's an introduction to a new way of a new activity for your total well-being and healthy lifestyle.
Lovely. Thank you, Liana. Thank you. Well, that's it for today. If you haven't yet, then please like the podcast, subscribe to it, and also go that extra step and share it as well. Share it with someone that you think may be interested in some of the science of positive health, positive psychology, and what it means to create a sense of thriving well-being in ourselves. I'm going to give a quick plug for one of the activities of the Global Positive Health Institute, and that's the curation of tiny health stories. Go to www.tinyhealthstories.online. You can submit your own tiny health story, and you can read the growing collection of stories that are there as well. Next time, we're going to be focused, as Liana suggested, on social connection and the role that that plays in our positive health and wellbeing too. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.
Thank you, Simon. Take care, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.